Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Meridian, watching the stars through the main view screen. 300 years had passed since humans first met other species in space. Now they were part of something bigger, called the Galactic Confederacy. But Elena still felt the same wonder every time. She looked at the endless black between worlds. The Meridian was not the biggest ship humans had built, but it was one of the fastest. Elena's crew of 60 people had been flying through space for 8 months now. They were mapping new star systems and looking for planets that might hold life. It was important work, but most days it felt routine. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings," said Lieutenant Sarah Kim from her station. Sarah was young but smart. She could read sensor data better than anyone Elena had ever met. Elena walked over to Sarah's console. Numbers and graphs filled the screen, but Elena could not make sense of them. "What kind of strange?" "Metal, Captain. Lots of it. But it's not moving like asteroids should." Sarah pointed at a cluster of dots on her screen. "Look at this pattern. These objects are too. Organized to be natural." Elena felt her heart beat faster. Finding something unexpected in space always meant danger or discovery. Sometimes both. "How far away?" 2 hours at full speed, Captain. "They're in the asteroid belt around the 4th planet." Elena thought for a moment. The Galactic Confederacy had rules about unknown objects in space. She was supposed to report anything unusual right away. But she was also supposed to investigate threats to human ships. If these objects were dangerous, her crew needed to know. "Set course for those readings," Elena said. "But keep our shields up and weapons ready." The next 2 hours felt like 20. Elena's crew ran every scan they could think of. The results made no sense. The objects were definitely artificial, but they were huge. Each one was twice the size of Earth's biggest warships. There were over 200 of them floating in space, like a ghost fleet. "Captain," said Marcus Chun, the ship's chief engineer. Marcus had been fixing ships longer than Elena had been alive. "These readings can't be right. The power signatures we're seeing. No ship needs that much energy just to float in space." "Maybe. They're not just floating," Elena said. She had a bad feeling about this dot. When the Meridian finally got close enough to see the objects clearly, Elena's jaw dropped. They were ships, but unlike anything she had ever seen. The hulls were smooth and curved like living things, but made of metal that seemed to shine with its own light. Strange crystal formations grew from the sides like frozen trees. Even covered in space dust, they looked beautiful and terrible at the same time. "My God," whispered Dr. James Wright, the ship's science officer. "Captain, these ships are old. Really old. Look at the impact scarring from micrometeorites. These things have been floating here for thousands of years, maybe more." Elena studied the formation of ships on her screen. They were not scattered randomly. They formed a defensive pattern, like they had been protecting something when they died. "Any life signs?" "None, Captain," Sarah reported. "But the power cores are still active. Whatever happened to the crews, it didn't damage the ship's main systems." Elena made a decision that would change everything. "Prepare a boarding party. I want to see what's inside one of those ships." "Captain," Marcus said carefully, "shouldn't we report this to Confederacy Command first? Unknown alien technology is supposed to be reported immediately." Elena looked at the ancient fleet floating in the darkness. Something about those ships called to her. They had been waiting here for so long, keeping their secrets. "We'll report it," she said. "After we know what we're reporting." It took 3 hours to prepare for the boarding mission. Elena chose her team carefully. Marcus for his engineering skills, Sarah for her sensor expertise, Dr. Wright for scientific analysis, and 4 security officers, led by Sergeant Rodriguez. They wore full environmental suits and carried enough air for 6 hours, The boarding shuttle felt tiny as it approached the largest ship in the formation. Elena had seen big ships before, but this one made her feel like an ant approaching a sleeping giant. The hull stretched away in all directions, covered in symbols that hurt her eyes to look at directly. "There," Marcus said, pointing at a section of the hull. "That looks like it might be an airlock." The ancient airlock responded to their approach like it had been waiting for them. Lights flickered along the hull, forming patterns that seemed almost like writing. The airlock door, larger than the Meridian's cargo bay, opened without sound. Elena's team drifted inside and found themselves in a chamber that could have held their entire shuttle. The walls were covered in the same flowing script they had seen. Outside, when the outer door sealed and atmosphere flooded the chamber, Elena's suit sensors showed the air was breathable for humans. "That's impossible," Dr. Wright said. "How does a dead ship maintain perfect atmosphere for thousands of years?" Elena did not answer. She was staring at the inner door, which had just opened to reveal a corridor that seemed to stretch forever into the ship's heart. The hallways were built for giants. The ceiling rose 5 meters above their heads, and the passages were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. Everything was clean and perfect, like the ship's crew had just stepped out for a moment. "Captain," Sarah said, her voice shaking slightly, "I'm reading massive computer systems throughout this ship. They're all active. It's like the whole ship is one giant thinking machine." They walked deeper into the ship, following signs they could not read toward what Elena hoped was the command center. The architecture was beautiful in a way that made her feel small and sad at the same time. Whoever built this place understood things about space and time that humans were only beginning to learn. The command center, when they finally found it, took Elena's breath away. The room was a perfect sphere, with control panels flowing along the curved walls like frozen water. In the center stood a chair clearly designed for someone much larger than any human. "Look at this," Dr. Wright called from one of the side panels. "These data cores are still active. If I can interface our portable computer with their systems." "Do it," Elena said. She had come too far to turn back now. When their computer connected with the alien systems, the command center came alive. Holographic displays filled the air around them, showing star charts of the entire galaxy. But this was not the galaxy Elena knew. This map showed thousands of civilizations spread across every spiral arm, connected by trade routes and communication networks. "Captain," Sarah said softly, "according to these dates, this map is over 4 million years old." Elena stared at the display. 4 million years ago, the galaxy had been full of life and civilization. Now most of those systems were empty, their stars still burning, but their worlds silent. What had happened to turn a galaxy of thousands of species into the few dozen that made up the current Confederacy? As if responding to her question, new displays appeared. These showed the final logs of whoever had commanded this ship. Elena could not understand the words, but she could read the emotion in the flowing script: fear, desperation, and finally, grim determination. "They were running from something," Elena said. "This whole fleet, they weren't exploring or conquering. They were fleeing." But even as she spoke, Elena realized that was not quite right. The ships were arranged in a defensive formation, yes, but they were not protecting themselves. They were protecting something else, something they thought was more important than their own lives. Elena looked around the command center one more time, memorizing every detail. Whatever secrets this ancient fleet held, she knew her life would never be the same after today. The moment she had chosen to board this ship, she had stepped across a line she could never cross back. Somewhere deep in the ship's computer systems, something stirred. Ancient programs began to wake up, responding to the presence of new life after eons of sleep. The test was about to begin. Elena's team spent the next 4 hours exploring the giant ship. Every room they entered was larger than anything built by humans. The corridors curved and flowed like they had grown instead of being built. Strange metals formed patterns in the walls that seemed to shift when Elena looked away, and then back again. Marcus ran his hands along one of the walls in what looked like an engine room. "Captain, this metal is not like anything we know. It's warm to the touch, but my scanner says it's been dead cold for thousands of years. The whole ship feels alive," Dr. Wright said from across the room. He was studying a panel covered in symbols. "But my readings show no biological activity at all. It's like the ship itself is sleeping." Elena nodded. She felt it too. The ship was not just a machine. It was something more, something that watched and waited. "Sarah, any luck with those data cores?" Sarah looked up from her portable computer. She had been trying to decode the alien. "Information for 2 hours. I'm getting fragments, Captain. The ship's computer is old, but it's trying to translate for us. Look at this." Sarah's screen showed images of tall, graceful beings with 4 arms and faces that seemed to change expression even in still pictures. They moved through cities that floated among the clouds of gas-giant planets. Their art was beautiful beyond description. "The computer calls them the architects," Sarah said. "They built these ships. But, Captain, look at the timeline." The screen changed to show a graph that made Elena's heart sink. The architects had not been alone in the galaxy. Thousands of different species had lived and worked together across millions of star systems. Trade flowed between worlds. Knowledge was shared freely. The galaxy had been a place of peace and growth. Then the graph showed everything starting to disappear. World after world went silent. Whole systems stopped communicating. The network of civilization began to break apart like a web with too many cuts. What happened to them all? Elena asked. Dr. Wright found part of the answer in another data core. "Captain, you need to see this. The architects were not just another species. They were gardeners." Elena frowned. "Gardeners?" They helped younger. Species learn and grow. When a new species discovered fire or built their first spaceship, the architects would quietly help them. They gave knowledge when it was needed. They protected peaceful species from aggressive ones. They kept the galaxy stable and safe. Elena studied the holographic displays around her. Images showed the architects visiting primitive worlds and leaving behind tools and knowledge. Always carefully, always slowly, so the younger species could grow at their own pace. They were like teachers, Sarah said, but teachers who never let their students know they were being taught. Marcus pointed at another display. Then what went wrong? Why did everything fall apart? The answer came from the ship's final log. Entries. Elena watched as the holographic displays showed the architect's last days. The images were broken and hard to understand, but the fear was clear. Something had come from the center of the galaxy. Something that destroyed not just planets and ships, but the very idea of civilization itself. The architects called them the Devourers. Elena could not understand all the words, but she could see what they did. Wherever the Devourers passed, space itself seemed to become empty and cold. Not just empty of life, but empty of hope. Empty of the possibility that life could ever exist there again. "They eat everything," Dr. Wright said in a whisper, "not just matter and energy. They consume the patterns that make civilization possible. After they pass through a system, that system can never support intelligent life again." Elena felt cold despite her heated suit. How do you fight something like that? The answer was in the architect's final choice. They could not stop the Devourers. Nothing could. But they could save something for the future. They gathered their greatest ships and filled them with everything they had learned over millions of years. Art, science, philosophy, technology. the memory of every species they had ever helped. This ship is not just a warship, Elena said, understanding finally. It's a library, a museum. They saved everything they could. Sarah's computer chimed with a new translation. Captain, look. At this final message, the words appeared on her screen in simple human language. For those who come after. For those who carry the flame when we cannot. The burden passes to you now. Do not let the light die. Elena stared at the message for a long time. The architects had not fled from the devourers. They had made a last stand to buy time. Time, too. Prepare this gift for whoever came next. Captain, Marcus said carefully, we should get back to the ship. We need to report this to Confederacy Command. Elena nodded, but as they prepared to leave, something changed. The lights in the command center grew brighter. The holographic displays shifted and moved. Dr. Wright's scanners began detecting new activity throughout the ship. Something's happening, Sarah said. The ship's computer systems are activating. All of them. Elena felt the ship wake up around her. It was not threatening, but it was powerful. Ancient systems that had slept for thousands of years were coming back to life. Can we still get out? Yes, Captain, Sergeant Rodriguez reported from near the exit. The path back to our shuttle is still clear. But Elena found herself reluctant. To leave, the ship was trying to tell her something. She could feel it reaching out, testing, trying to understand what kind of beings had found it. Just a few more minutes, Elena said. I think it wants to communicate. The holographic displays changed again. Now they showed not the past, but the present. Elena saw her own ship, the Meridian, floating near the ancient fleet. She saw other human ships scattered across known space. She saw the current members of the Galactic Confederacy, all of them young species still learning their place among the stars. Then the display showed something that made Elena's blood freeze. Far away, at the edge of the galaxy, something was moving. The devourers had not stopped after destroying the architects. They had continued their work, slowly consuming everything in their path. And now they were getting close to Confederacy space. How long do we have? Elena asked. The empty air dot numbers appeared on the display. Elena could not read the alien symbols, but Sarah's computer translated them quickly. 50 to 60 years. Captain, maybe less if they speed up. Elena closed her eyes. 50 years seemed like a long time, but she knew it was not. Not when facing something that had destroyed millions of civilizations. Not when the current Galactic Confederacy had maybe a few dozen intelligent species, most of them barely able to travel between stars. The architects left this fleet for us, Elena said quietly, for whoever found it. They knew someone would eventually discover it. Dr. Wright nodded slowly. The question is, what are we supposed to do with it? Before Elena could answer, the ship's computer spoke to them. Not in words, but in images and feelings that appeared directly in their minds. Elena saw herself standing in this same command center, but it was clean and bright and full of purpose. She saw humans working alongside the ship's systems, learning and growing and preparing. The ship was offering them a choice. They could take the knowledge and run, try to hide somewhere the devourers would not find them. Or they could accept the responsibility the architects had carried for so long. They could become the gardeners, the teachers, the protectors. Captain, Marcus said urgently, my readings show massive power buildups throughout the fleet. All the ships are waking up. Elena opened her eyes and looked around the command center one more time. The architects had faced this same choice once. They had chosen to fight, knowing they would lose, so that others might have a chance to fight better. We need to get back to the Meridian, Elena said. And then we need to make the hardest decision humanity has ever faced. As they left the ancient ship, Elena felt its attention following them. It was not done with them yet. In fact, Elena realized their real conversation was just beginning. The ship had been sleeping for thousands of years, waiting for someone worthy to find it. Elena was not sure if humans were worthy, but she was beginning to understand that worthiness might not be something you were born with. It might be something you became by making the right choice when everything depended on it. Behind them, the ancient fleet continued to wake up. Their systems reaching out to each other like old friends greeting after a long sleep. Soon, Elena knew they would want an answer to their unspoken question. Would humanity accept the inheritance the architects had died to preserve? Or would they turn away and let the galaxy face the devourers alone? Elena looked out at the stars and wondered if she was strong enough to make that choice for all of humanity. Elena and her team barely made it back to the Meridian before everything changed. As their shuttle docked, Sarah's sensors went wild with readings from the ancient fleet. Every ship was now fully awake, their power systems humming with energy that had been sleeping for thousands of years. "Captain," Marcus said as they hurried to the bridge, "the energy output from that fleet is incredible. If they wanted to destroy us, we would not even know it happened." Elena nodded grimly. She had felt the power of those ancient ships when they woke up. The Meridian was a good ship, but compared to the architect fleet, it was like a rowboat next to a battleship. On the bridge, Lieutenant Kim was staring at her screens with wide eyes. "Captain, you need to see this. Something is coming from the flagship." Elena looked at the main view screen. A beam of soft light was extending from the largest architect ship toward the Meridian. It moved slowly, like it was being careful not to frighten them. "Should we raise shields?" asked Sergeant Rodriguez. Elena thought for a moment. If the architects wanted to hurt them, shields would not help, and something told her this was not an attack. "No, let it make contact." The beam touched the Meridian's hull, and suddenly the bridge filled with light. But it was not harsh or blinding. It was warm and gentle, like sunlight through clouds. Elena felt a presence in her mind, vast and ancient, but somehow kind. Then the light took shape. A figure appeared in the center of the bridge, tall and graceful, like the architects in the historical records. But this one was made of light and energy instead of flesh and bone. When it spoke, Elena heard the words not with her ears, but directly in her thoughts. "I am the custodian," the figure said. Its voice sounded like music and felt like a warm breeze. "I have waited so long for someone to find us, but finding us is only the beginning. You must prove yourselves worthy of what we offer." Elena stepped forward, trying to hide her fear. "Worthy how?" The custodian gestured, and the bridge around them disappeared. Elena and her crew found themselves standing in a vast space filled with stars. They could breathe and move normally, but Elena knew this was not real. It was some kind of simulation or test. The architects learned that technology alone is not enough, the custodian explained. Many species we helped became powerful, but not wise. They used our gifts to hurt others or themselves. Before we died, we decided that our final inheritance must go only to those who would use it well. Elena looked around at her crew. They all seemed calm, even Dr. Wright, who usually got nervous in strange situations. What kind of test? Not a test of intelligence, the custodian said. Your species is clever enough. Not a test of strength. You are brave enough. We will test your hearts. We will see what choices you make when everything is at stake. The space around them changed. Elena found herself standing on the bridge of a ship she did not recognize. Through the view screen, she could see a planet covered in cities and lights. Millions of people lived there, but they were not human. They were tall and thin with blue skin and large eyes. This is Carallax Prime, the custodian's voice explained. Home to 8 billion Carallaxians. They are a peaceful people who have never hurt anyone. But their sun is dying much faster than their scientists expected. In 6 hours, it will explode and kill every living thing in this system. Elena studied the displays on the alien bridge. She could see evacuation ships trying to leave the planet. But there were not enough of them. Most of the population would die. Here is your choice, the custodian continued. You have 2 ships. One is the vessel you stand on now. It can save 2 million Carolaxians. The other ship is yours, the Meridian, with your crew aboard. But there is a problem. The display changed to show both ships. Elena could see that the Carolaxian ship was much larger, but moved slowly. The Meridian was fast but small. The dying star is sending out radiation waves, the custodian explained. If the Carolaxian ship tries to save people, it will be caught by the first wave. It will be destroyed, and all 2 million people aboard will die. But if the Meridian uses its speed to shield the larger ship, your crew will survive long enough for the Carolaxian ship to escape with its people. Elena felt her heart sink. And the Meridian would be destroyed? All 60 of your crew would die to save 2 million strangers. Elena looked at her officers. In the simulation, they could all hear the custodian's words. She saw the understanding in their eyes and the fear. But she also saw something else. Determination. How long do we have to decide? Elena asked. You have already decided, said Dr. Wright quietly. We all have, Elena nodded. She had known the answer the moment she understood the choice. We shield. The evacuation ship. The simulation showed the Meridian moving to block the radiation wave. Elena watched her ship die in a burst of light, knowing her crew was dying with it. Even though she knew it was not real, tears ran down her face. Why? The custodian asked. Why sacrifice 60 lives you know and care about for 2 million lives you have never met? Elena wiped her eyes. Because it's the right thing to do. Because those 2 million people want to live just as much as we do. Because someone has to choose to do the right thing, even when it hurts. The simulation faded, and they were back on the real Meridian's bridge. The custodian nodded approvingly. The architects gave the same answer when we asked them this question. But there are more tests. The second test was different, but just as hard. Elena found her crew scattered across a space station that was falling apart. Each crew member was in a different section, and each section had a critical job that needed to be done to save the station. But there was a catch. Only one person could be promoted to captain of a new exploration ship when they got back to Earth. The others would have ordinary jobs. In this test, each crew member could either do their job perfectly and let someone else get the promotion, or they could sabotage the others to make themselves look better. Elena watched through the station's cameras as her crew made their choices. Marcus found a way to make both his section and Sarah's section work better, even though helping Sarah might cost him the promotion. Dr. Wright shared his discoveries with everyone instead of keeping them secret. Even Sergeant Rodriguez, who was not competing for the captain's job, worked extra hard to make sure his teammates looked good. Your people choose cooperation over competition, the custodian observed, even when competition would benefit them personally. This is unusual. Not really, Elena said. We succeed together, or we fail together. That's how humans work. The third test was the hardest one yet. The custodian showed Elena and her crew what the Devourers really were. Not just destroyers, but entities of pure hunger that consumed the very possibility of life and growth. When they finished with the star system, nothing could ever live there again. Not in 1,000,000 years, not ever. They have eaten half the galaxy, the custodian said. They will reach Confederacy space in 50 years. When they do, every species you know will die. Every world will become empty forever, including Earth. Elena felt sick. Can they be stopped? The architects tried for 1,000 years. We slowed them down, but we could not stop them. Perhaps a different approach will work, perhaps not. But someone must try, or all life in the galaxy will end. The custodian showed them images of the galaxy as it would be after the devourers finished there. Work, empty, silent, dead forever. Here is your final choice, the custodian said. You can take some of our technology and run. Find a way to hide Earth where the devourers will not look. Save your own species and let the others face their fate alone. Or you can accept the full inheritance and the responsibility that comes with it. Become what the architects were. Protect everyone, even if it costs you everything. Elena looked at her crew again. She saw the same expression on every face. Fear, yes, but also resolve. If we run and hide, Elena said, how long before the devourers find us anyway? Unknown. Perhaps 1,000 years. Perhaps 10,000. But eventually, they will find everything. Elena nodded. Running would only delay the end. And if we accept your inheritance, you will have the tools to fight. Knowledge from 1,000,000 civilizations. Ships that can move between stars, like your shuttle moves between planets. Weapons that use the force that holds atoms together. But you will also have the burden of protecting species that cannot protect themselves. You will have to make choices that will hurt your heart, and you may still lose. Elena thought about Earth, with its blue oceans and white clouds. She thought about all the human colonies scattered among the stars. She thought about the other species in the Confederacy, young and hopeful, and unaware of what was coming for them. The architects faced this same choice, Elena said. Yes, and they chose to fight, knowing they would lose, so that others might have a chance to fight better. Elena took a deep breath. She thought about her crew, who had already shown they would sacrifice themselves for strangers. She thought about humanity, stubborn and brave, and too foolish to know when they were beaten. We accept, Elena said. We accept the inheritance and everything that comes with it. The custodian smiled, and for the first time since the tests began, Elena felt hope instead of fear. Then let us begin your education, the custodian said. You have much to learn and little time to learn it. The devourers do not sleep, and neither can we. The moment Elena accepted the inheritance, everything changed. The bridge of the meridian filled with new displays and information streams that connected directly to the ancient fleet. Elena could feel the knowledge of 1,000,000 dead civilizations flowing into the ship's computers. Captain, Sarah said in amazement, our computer systems are integrating with theirs. I'm seeing star charts that show every inhabited world in the galaxy, past and present. The custodian's form became more solid, more real. Now that you have accepted, I can tell you the complete truth. The architects did not choose your species by accident. We have been watching humanity for 300 years, since you first left your home system. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Watching us. Why? Because you are different from other species in a way that matters. The custodian gestured, and the air filled with images of different alien races. Most intelligent life follows predictable patterns. When faced with extinction, they try to save themselves. When given power, they use it for personal gain. When threatened by something larger than themselves, they submit or they hide. Elena saw images of species she recognized from the Galactic Confederacy. All of them were peaceful and reasonable. All of them preferred negotiation to fighting. All of them would probably surrender rather than face impossible odds. Humans are different, the custodian continued. You have a flaw that other species consider madness. When someone you care about is threatened, you become dangerous. When faced with impossible odds, you become stubborn. When told something cannot be done, you try anyway. More images appeared, these showing human history. Elena saw ancient battles. where small groups of humans held off much larger armies. She saw explorers sailing into unknown oceans, despite warnings about sea monsters. She saw scientists spending their whole lives trying to solve problems everyone said were impossible. Other species call this human recklessness, the custodian said. But the architects recognized it as something else. Hope backed by action. The willingness to fight for others, even when you cannot win. Elena thought about the tests they had just passed. Each one had required them to choose sacrifice over safety, duty over personal gain. You needed someone crazy enough to fight the Devourers. Yes, but more than that. The custodian's expression became sad. The architects tried to fight the Devourers with logic and technology. They built weapons that could destroy stars. They created shields that could protect entire solar systems. None of it worked. The Devourers are not just destroyers. They are entropy made conscious. They cannot be defeated by force alone. Elena frowned. Then how can they be defeated at all? Perhaps they cannot, but they can be opposed. They can be slowed down. And if they are slowed down enough, if someone fights them hard enough for long enough, perhaps a way will be found. The custodian showed Elena new images now. Not of battles or weapons, but of something else. Schools and hospitals, built on alien worlds. Human doctors treating species they had never seen before. Human teachers showing alien children how to read and write. The real inheritance is not the ships or the weapons, the custodian explained. It is this, the knowledge of how to help other species grow and survive. The architects spent millions of years learning how to nurture civilization. All of that knowledge is now yours. Elena began to understand. You want us to become what the architects were. Not just warriors, but gardeners. Yes, help the young species become strong. Teach them to work together instead of fighting each other. Build alliances that can survive even if Earth falls. Make the galaxy ready for what is coming. Sarah looked up from her console with wide eyes. Captain, I'm seeing the full scope of their technology now. These ships don't just carry weapons. They carry everything needed to rebuild entire civilizations. Genetic templates for extinct species. Complete libraries of art and science from thousands of worlds. Seeds and tools and teaching programs. Elena felt the weight of responsibility, settling on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. How many species are left in the galaxy? I mean, besides the ones in the Confederacy? 47 spacefaring civilizations remain active, the custodian replied. Perhaps 200 more that have not yet discovered faster-than-light travel. The rest are gone. Elena did the math in her head. Even if every surviving species joined together, they would still be facing an enemy that had already destroyed millions of civilizations. That's not very many. No, but it is what we have to work with. And humans have surprised us before. Doctor. Wright had been quiet during most of the conversation, but now he spoke up. Custodian, what happened to the other species who found architect technology before us? Surely someone else must have discovered sites like this. The custodian was quiet for a long moment. 17 species found architect ruins over the past 4 million years. We offered them the same choice we offered you. And 3 accepted the inheritance, but used it only for themselves. They became powerful, but isolated. When the Devourers reached them, they fell quickly. 7 tried to use the technology to hide from the coming threat. The Devourers found them anyway. 5 tried to use our weapons to conquer their neighbors, thinking a galactic empire could stand against entropy. They destroyed themselves in civil wars. Elena felt her heart sink. What about the other 2? They chose wisely. They used our gifts to help others and build alliances. They fought bravely when the time came. They slowed the Devourers down by perhaps 1,000 years each before they fell. Elena closed her eyes. Even the best outcomes ended in destruction. So we're going to lose too. Probably, the custodian said gently. But losing and failing are not the same thing. The architects lost, but they did not fail. They preserved what mattered most and passed it on to you. If you lose but pass the torch to someone else, you will not have failed either. Marcus had been studying the technical readouts from the fleet. Captain, what the custodian is showing us ... This isn't just advanced technology. It's impossible technology. These ships can fold spacetime. They can turn matter into energy and back again. They can create artificial gravity wells strong enough to stop stars from exploding. And yet none of it was enough to stop the Devourers, Elena said. Because the Devourers are not just strong, the custodian explained. They are the opposite of everything life represents. Where life creates patterns and complexity, they create simplicity and emptiness. Where life builds connections between different things, they isolate everything until it becomes nothing. Elena thought about this. So fighting them is like trying to push back the ocean with your hands. Yes, but if enough people push together, if they push in the right way and at the right time, they might create a wave that flows the other direction. The custodian gestured, and new displays appeared around them. These showed star charts with detailed information about every known species in the galaxy. Elena could see their populations, their technology levels, their political systems, even their psychology profiles. This is your new responsibility, the custodian said. Not just to prepare for war, but to prepare civilizations themselves. Help them become stronger, wiser, more united. Build connections between species that have never met. Create alliances that can survive even when individual worlds fall. Elena studied the charts. Some species were naturally peaceful, but had weak militaries. Others were strong fighters, but distrusted outsiders. A few were advanced in technology, but poor at working with others. It's like putting together a puzzle with pieces that don't want to fit. Exactly. And you have maybe 50 years to complete it. Sarah looked up from her console again. Captain, there's something else. The fleet's long-range sensors are more powerful than anything we have. I'm picking up signals from the edge of Devourer space. They're moving faster than the projections showed. Elena felt her stomach drop. How much faster? Instead of 50 years, we might have 30, maybe less. The bridge went quiet. 30 years seemed like no time at all to unite dozens of alien species and prepare them for a war against impossible odds. Captain, Dr. Wright said quietly, how do we even begin? How do we convince the Galactic Confederacy to listen to us? Most of them have never seen a real war. They won't believe something like the Devourers exists. Elena looked around at her crew, then at the custodian. The ancient AI was watching her with something that might have been sympathy. We start by going home, Elena said finally. We tell Earth what we found. Then we figure out how to tell everyone else without causing a panic that tears the Confederacy apart. And if they don't believe us? Marcus asked. Elena thought about the choice the architects had made millions of years ago. They had faced the same problem, the same impossible task. They had chosen to try anyway. Then we do what humans do best, Elena said. We get stubborn. We refuse to give up. And we find a way to make the impossible happen, even if it kills us. The custodian smiled. Now you begin to understand why the architects chose your species. Welcome to the burden of guardianship, Captain Vasquez. May you carry it more successfully than we did. Around them, the ancient fleet hummed with power, ready to follow humanity into its greatest challenge. Elena looked out at the stars and wondered if 30 years would be enough time to save them all. Elena stood in the command center of the ancient flagship, watching as her crew worked alongside architect systems that responded to human touch like they had been waiting for this moment. 3 days had passed since she accepted the inheritance, and everything about their mission had changed. "Captain," Marcus called from an engineering console that seemed to grow from the ship's wall like a metal tree. "The integration is complete. Our computer systems are now connected to the entire fleet network. We have access to everything the architects knew." Elena nodded, but the knowledge felt like a heavy weight in her mind. She could access star charts showing the locations of every habitable world in the galaxy. She could read the histories of civilizations that died before Earth's sun was born. She could understand technologies that human scientists would need centuries to discover on their own. But most importantly, she could see exactly what humanity was up against. "Show me the Devourer projections again," Elena said. The holographic display filled with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. A dark wave was spreading outward from the galactic core, consuming everything in its path. Where it passed, the stars remained, but everything else disappeared. No planets, no life, no possibility of life ever existing there again. "At current speed, they will reach the Outer Rim territories in 28 years, Sarah reported. "The first Confederacy worlds will fall in 32 years. Earth in 35. Elena studied the timeline. It was not enough time to build weapons powerful enough to stop the Devourers. But it might be enough time to do something else. Something the architects had never tried. "Custodian," Elena said to the AI that now resided partially in the Meridian's computers. "Show me the evacuation protocols." New displays appeared, showing detailed plans for moving entire populations between star systems. The architect's ships were not just warships or research vessels. They were arc ships, capable of carrying millions of people across the galaxy. "The architect's final plan," the custodian explained. "If all else failed, save as many as possible and find somewhere the Devourers might not look." Elena shook her head. Running didn't work for the architects. "It won't work for us either. But what if we tried something different?" Dr. Wright looked up from a biological database that contained genetic information for every known species. "Different how, Captain?" Elena pointed at the galactic map. "The Devourers move in a wave, consuming everything as they go. But they've been doing this for millions of years. They follow patterns. They expect civilizations to either fight them directly or run away." "What's the third option?" Marcus asked. Elena smiled grimly. "We give them nothing to consume." The plan that formed in Elena's mind was crazy even by human standards. Instead of trying to fight the Devourers or hide from them, humanity would evacuate entire star systems before the wave arrived. Not just the people, but everything. The planets, the space stations, even the useful asteroids and comets. "It's never been tried," the custodian said when Elena explained her idea. "The technology exists, but the coordination required ... You would need every species in the galaxy working together perfectly." "Then that's what we'll do," Elena said. Sarah stared at her captain. "Elena, you're talking about moving billions of people and thousands of worlds. The logistics alone would be impossible. The architects moved entire solar systems when they needed to," Elena replied. "Their technology can fold space-time, remember? We can take whole planets through dimensional gates to new locations." Elena pulled up technical specifications that made her head hurt to look at. The architect ships could create artificial wormholes large enough for planets to pass through. They could establish new solar systems in empty space by moving stars themselves. "But where would we move everything?" Dr. Wright asked. "The Devourers will eventually search the whole galaxy." Elena pointed to a region of the galactic map that showed empty space between the spiral arms. There, in the galactic void. The Devourers have never been observed to enter empty space between galaxies. They only consume areas where life has already existed. Marcus was running calculations on his console. Captain, what you're suggesting? We would essentially be rebuilding galactic civilization in a place where no life has ever existed. Creating something completely new. Exactly. Something the Devourers have never encountered before. The custodian was quiet for a long time. When it finally spoke, there was something like wonder in its voice. The architects never considered this approach. We were too focused on preserving what already existed. You want to create something entirely new. Elena nodded. But we can't do it alone. We need every species in the Confederacy to agree. We need them to trust us with their entire civilizations. Over the next week, Elena and her crew worked with the custodian to refine the plan. It would require the construction of massive evacuation fleets using architect technology. Every inhabited world would need to be carefully transported to new locations in the galactic void. New star systems would have to be created from scratch using stellar engineering techniques that pushed the limits of even architect science. Most challenging of all, it would require unprecedented cooperation between species that had never fully trusted each other. The Yalanti will never agree, Sarah said, reading through diplomatic files. They've been isolationists for 200 years. They barely participate in Confederacy meetings. The Krex might agree, but only if they're given leadership roles, Dr. Wright added. And the Zephyrians will want guarantees that they're cultural. Sites can be preserved exactly. Elena looked at the list of 47 surviving civilizations. Each had different needs, different fears, different reasons to distrust the others. Convincing them all to abandon their homeworlds based on the word of one human captain would be nearly impossible. We start with Earth, Elena decided. If humanity agrees to the plan, other species might follow our example. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks, even with the architect fleet's faster-than-light drives. Elena used the time to prepare her report and think about how to explain everything to the people who mattered most. When they emerged from hyperspace near Earth, Elena was amazed to see how small her home world looked compared to the ancient ships that followed her. The architect fleet dwarfed anything humanity had built, a testament to technologies beyond current understanding. Earth control to UES Meridian, came the voice from the communication array. Please explain the nature of your escort. Our sensors are detecting massive unknown vessels. Elena took a deep breath. Earth control, this is Captain Vasquez. I need to speak with the Confederacy Council immediately. What I have to tell them will change everything. The next hours were a blur of meetings, explanations, and demonstrations. Elena stood before the assembled leaders of Earth's government and the Confederacy representatives stationed there. She told them about the architects, the Devourers, and the choice humanity now faced. Some believed her immediately when they saw the ancient ships and their impossible technologies. Others demanded proof, which the custodian provided by showing them real-time images of Devourer-consumed space at the galaxy's edge. The debates that followed were intense. Some leaders wanted to use the architect weapons to build an impregnable fortress around Earth. Others suggested hiding the whole solar system in another dimension until the danger passed. But Elena kept returning to her evacuation plan. We have a chance to save everyone, she argued. Not just humans, but every living thing in the galaxy. We can build something new, something the Devourers can't destroy. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than Elena had hoped. Earth's government agreed to support the evacuation plan by just 3 votes. But it was enough. Over the following months, Elena traveled to every member world of the Confederacy. Sometimes she took just the Meridian. Sometimes she brought parts of the architect fleet to demonstrate their capabilities. Always she carried the same message: work together or die separately. Slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to unite. The Ilanti agreed when Elena showed them how their isolationist tendencies could be preserved in the galactic void. The Krex demanded leadership roles and got them, becoming chief coordinators for the evacuation fleets. The Zephyrians received guarantees that their cultural sites would be the first things moved to safety. Construction began on a scale never before attempted. Architect fabrication technology was shared with every species, allowing them to build evacuation ships using principles that rewrote the laws of physics. Stellar engineers began planning new solar systems in the empty space between galaxies, but the most important work was diplomatic. Elena found herself traveling constantly, mediating disputes between species, solving logistical problems that seemed impossible, and always reminding everyone what they were working toward. "You've changed," the custodian observed during one of their planning sessions. "When we first met, you were a ship captain. Now you're something else." Elena looked out at the fleet of ships under construction around Earth. Vessels from dozens of different species working side by side, building something that had never existed before. "I'm what humanity becomes when we have something important to protect," Elena said. The work continued. Years passed. The galactic evacuation plan took.
The alarm screamed through the corridors of Galactic Watch Station. Red lights flashed in every room. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison ran from his quarters to the control center. His bare feet slapped against the cold metal floor. He had not bothered to put on shoes when the emergency signal woke him. "Report!" Jake shouted as he reached the command bridge. Dr. Lisa White looked up from her console. Her face was pale. "Deep space probes picked up something massive, Commander. It's moving toward us," Jake frowned. "Define massive." "Entire star systems are going dark," Lisa said. "The probes show complete absorption of matter. Planets, moons, even stars themselves." The bridge door opened with a hiss. Korthak, the Zephyrian ambassador, rushed in. His 6 arms flailed as he moved. His orange skin had turned a sick yellow color. "The Devourers!" Korthak screamed. "The Ancient Ones have awakened!" Jake had never seen Korthak lose his composure. The Zephyrians were known for their calm nature. Something was very wrong. "What are Devourers?" Jake asked. "Death," said a voice from the corner. Trilox 9, the AI representative, stepped forward. Its mechanical body clicked and whirred. "Complete consumption. No species survives contact with them." Lisa pulled up holographic displays. The images made Jake's stomach turn. Entire solar systems had been stripped clean. Nothing remained but empty space where planets once orbited. "How far away are they?" Jake asked. "At their current speed, they will reach the nearest inhabited system in 6 weeks, Trilox 9 calculated. Our system in 12 weeks. Korthak was already moving toward the communication panel. "We must begin evacuation protocols immediately. Every species must flee to the outer rim." Jake watched as more alien representatives arrived on the bridge. The crystalline Vorthin sealed their section behind force fields. The gaseous nebulons began transmitting distress signals. Every species had the same reaction: panic and immediate retreat plans. "Wait," Jake said, holding up his hand. "Let's gather more information first." The alien stopped and stared at him. Korthak's tentacles twitched nervously. "Information?" Christak, the Vorthin delegate, vibrated in what Jake recognized as laughter. "You wish to study death itself?" Jake walked to the main console. "Show me their ships, their weapons, how they move." Lisa's fingers danced across the keyboard. More holograms appeared. The Devourers used massive biomechanical vessels. They absorbed matter into themselves, growing larger with each consumed world. "What powers them?" Jake asked. "Unknown," Trilox 9 responded. "No species has ever survived to report back." "So you all just run?" Jake asked. "Every single time?" The bridge fell silent. Korthak's orange skin turned darker. "Running is survival, human. Fighting is extinction." Jake studied the data streams, flowing across the screens. Numbers, trajectories, energy signatures. Things that could be analyzed. Problems that could be solved. Have you tried to communicate with them? Jake asked. Communicate? Christak vibrated again. One does not communicate with a natural disaster. Jake turned to face the assembled aliens. But we're not dealing with an earthquake or a hurricane. These things have ships. They have tactics. That means they have intelligence. Korthak stepped forward. Human Morrison, I have seen the recordings from the last encounter. The Silthorian Empire had 700 war vessels. The Devourers consumed them all in 3 days. The ships, the crews, even the debris. Nothing remained. And did the Silthorians try to understand their enemy? Jake asked. Or did they just shoot and run? The aliens exchanged glances. Trilox 9's optical sensors focused on Jake. You propose to study them? Trilox 9 asked. I propose we learn everything we can, Jake said. Their weaknesses, their limits, how they reproduce, how they communicate. Even natural disasters have patterns. Lisa looked up from her console. Commander, I'm getting more data from the probes. The absorption process isn't random. There's a pattern to how they harvest matter. Jake moved to stand beside her. Show me. The hologram displayed the Devourers consuming a planet. They didn't simply devour everything at once. They methodically stripped resources in a specific order. Metals first, Lisa explained. Then organic material. Water last. It's like they're following a recipe. A recipe means intelligence, Jake said. Intelligence means we can predict behavior. Korthak made a noise that sounded like a whimper. The human species will be the death of all of us. This curiosity will doom us all. Jake ignored him. Lisa, calculate how long until we can build a deep space observation vessel. Something that can monitor them without being detected. Are you insane? Christak vibrated violently. You wish to get closer to them? Knowledge is power, Jake said simply. The more we know, the better we can prepare. Trilox 9 processed this information. Your species consistently chooses to fight rather than flee. Statistical analysis shows a 73% probability of extinction when facing superior forces. And a 100% probability of extinction if we run, Jake countered. These things consume everything. There's nowhere to hide forever. The bridge fell silent, again. The red alarm lights continued to flash. The Devourers continued their approach. Lisa cleared her throat. Commander, preliminary scans show the Devourers emit a unique energy signature during consumption. If we can modulate our shields to that frequency, we might be able to get close enough to study them, Jake finished. Do it. As the aliens rushed to begin their evacuation protocols, Jake and Lisa remained on the bridge. They watched the data streams and planned their approach to the coming threat. You know they think we're crazy, Lisa said quietly. Jake nodded. Maybe we are. But running away never solved anything. Besides, someone has to be the first to try something different. Outside the station's windows, distant stars began to wink, out of existence. The Devourers were coming, and humanity would be ready. The Great Hall on Nexus Prime had never been so full. Representatives from every known species filled the massive chamber. The air itself seemed thick with fear. Jake Morrison stood at the human section watching the chaos unfold. Admiral Steve Collins adjusted his uniform. This doesn't look good, Morrison. Jake nodded. They all want to run, every last one of them. Lisa White reviewed her notes one more time. She had prepared a presentation showing how the Devourers could be stopped. Mathematical models, energy calculations, tactical weaknesses, all ignored by the panicking aliens around them. The council, leader, a massive being made of swirling cosmic dust, called for order. The motion on the floor is simple, its voice boomed through the chamber. All species will participate in the Great Retreat. We move our civilizations to the far edge of the galaxy, beyond the reach of the Devourers. Cheers erupted from every alien delegation. Tentacles waved, wings flapped, crystalline beings chimed in harmony. All in favor? The council leader asked. Every section lit up with approval. Except one. The humans vote against, Jake declared. The hall fell silent. Hundreds of eyes, sensors, and other sensory organs focused on the human delegation. Korthak rose from his section. Surely the humans misunderstand. This is not a military action. This is survival itself. Jake walked to the central podium. We understand perfectly. You want every species to abandon their worlds, their homes, their entire civilizations, pack up and run to the edge of known space. Yes, Kristak vibrated intensely. Away from certain death. And then what? Jake asked. We all huddle at the edge of space while these devourers consume the entire galaxy? What happens when they finish with everything else and come for us? Trilox 9 projected calculations above the chamber. Based on consumption rates, the devourers would reach the outer rim in approximately 847 standard years. So our children's children will face the same problem, Jake said, but with no knowledge of how to fight them, no preparation, and nowhere left to run. Admiral Collins stood. We propose a coordinated defense. Every species contributes ships, weapons, knowledge. We make our stand now, while we have time to prepare. Laughter erupted from multiple species. It sounded like grinding metal, breaking glass, and howling wind all at once. Defense? The Vorthan delegate vibrated so violently that pieces of crystal broke off. You would fight entropy itself? You would challenge the very force that ends all things? Lisa stepped forward with her data pad. Our analysis shows the devourers have identifiable patterns. They're not some mystical force. They're biological organisms that can be studied, understood, and defeated. She projected her findings above the chamber. Energy readouts, tactical, assessments, potential counters to devourer technology. You see, she continued, they have weaknesses. Their consumption process requires specific energy configurations. If we can disrupt their enough, thundered the Zephyrian elder, speaker for her entire species. We have heard the legends, we know the stories, the infinite swarm, the void takers, the soul eaters, every name for the same inexorable end. She pointed 6 arms at the human delegation. And always, always those who fight are consumed first. The brave ones die. The cautious ones survive. Until they don't, Jake replied quietly. Until the devourers find them anyway. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Translators worked overtime to process the cacophony of alien discussion. Finally, the cosmic dust being called for the vote. All in favor of the Great Retreat? One by one, sections lit up. The lizard-like Thraxians, the gaseous Nebulons, the insectoid Kretak. Even the usually warlike Blurath voted to flee. 47 species voted for retreat. All opposed? A single light illuminated the human section. The motion passes, the council leader announced. The Great Retreat begins immediately. All defensive pacts are dissolved. All trade routes will be abandoned. All communication with retreating species will cease. Jake felt the weight of isolation settling on humanity's shoulders. Then Earth stands, alone. The Zephyrian elder approached the human delegation as the council dispersed. You doom yourselves with your stubbornness, humans. Your children will curse your names. Admiral Collins met her gaze. Our children will know we tried to save everyone, even those who abandoned us. Within hours, the xenocide had begun, not by alien hands, but by alien absence. The great communications network went dark. Trade ships turned away from human space. Defensive installations powered down and retreated. Back on Earth, President Mary Johnson addressed the Emergency Global Council. World leaders filled the secure chamber, their faces grim. They're gone, she announced. Every single one of our alien allies has initiated retreat protocols. As of this morning, humanity is alone in our fight against the devourers. How long until they arrive? Asked the Chinese premier. 12 weeks to our outer defenses, replied General Paul Baker. If the aliens' calculations are correct, and if they're wrong, asked the Russian president, then we get less time to prepare. President Johnson stood taller. Then we prepare for war, full mobilization, every resource, every innovation, every human being working toward one goal, survival through strength. Is this wise? the European Union representative asked. The aliens have survived for millennia. Perhaps they know something we don't. They know how to run, President Johnson replied. We're going to learn how to fight. The meeting continued through the night. Plans were drawn, resources allocated. The entire planet began its transformation from a peaceful world to a fortress. Jake Morrison watched Earth from the viewport of Galactic Watch Station. The blue and green planet looked so small against the vast darkness. They all ran, Lisa said, beside him. All except us. Are we wrong, Jake? Are we condemning our entire species to extinction? Jake thought about the empty stations, the silent communication channels, the vast loneliness of being the only species willing to fight. Maybe, he admitted. But if we're wrong by running, we all die anyway. If we're wrong by fighting, at least, we die trying to save something. Below them, Earth's cities lit up with unusual brightness. Factories working overtime. Shipyards building at maximum capacity. Humanity preparing for war. They ran from the fight. Jake continued, watching the lights. But we're not built that way, never were. The factory floor stretched for miles. Machines hummed day and night. Workers moved between assembly lines with purpose. This was Detroit War Works, formerly the greatest automotive manufacturing center on Earth. Now it built warships. General Paul Baker walked the production line. His boots clanked against metal flooring. Behind him followed a team of engineers and military advisors. How many ships can we complete this week? He asked. Engineer Kate Miller checked her tablet. 12 Prometheus-class battleships, 24 fighters, 8 support vessels. Double it, Baker ordered. Kate's eyes widened. Sir, we're already working triple shifts. Then find a way. The Devourers don't care about our overtime rules. Similar scenes played out across every continent. In Beijing, fusion reactors rose from the ground like metal mountains. In Tokyo, massive railgun installations pointed toward space. In London, scientists worked around the clock in newly built laboratories. Commander Amy Chen stood in one such lab in California. Banks of computers surrounded her. Each screen showed different alien technologies humans had collected over the years. Trade, items, gift exchanges, samples from various species. Show me the weapon configurations again, she told her team. Dr. Alan Ross, a physicist who had switched from theoretical research to military applications, pulled up holographic displays. The Zephyrian plasma cannons are our best bet, but we need to modify them for human ships. What about power requirements? Amy asked. We've combined human nuclear technology with alien energy cells. The output is impressive. Amy smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Show me impressive on the test. Target. They walked to the firing range. A massive alien hull segment sat at the far end. It had once belonged to a Thraxian cruiser, abandoned when they joined the retreat. Fire, Amy commanded. The modified plasma cannon charged. Blue energy built in its chamber. Then it released with a sound like thunder splitting the sky. The alien hull didn't just melt, it vaporized. That will do nicely, Amy said. Above Earth, the construction of the solar defense grid continued. Captain John Davis floated in a spacesuit outside the lunar shipyard. His team worked to install the final components of the moon-based launch facility. How's the conversion going? His second-in-command asked through the radio. The lunar mining tunnels are perfect for missile storage, John replied. We can house 3,000 warheads in this complex alone. And the railgun platform? John looked at the massive structure taking shape. It used the moon's lower gravity to launch projectiles at incredible speeds. Operational in 6 days. Back on Earth, President Johnson visited a school in Ohio. Children filled the auditorium. Their artwork covered the walls. Drawings of spaceships, battles, heroes fighting monsters. A girl raised her hand. Will we be safe, Madam President? Mary knelt to meet the child's eyes. We're doing everything possible to keep you safe. Sometimes grown-ups have to fight to protect what's important. Like my dad? The girl asked. He joined the Void Corps. Exactly like your dad. He's very brave. After the assembly, Mary walked through the school hallways. Every classroom had been modified for dual purposes. Morning classes taught normal subjects. Afternoons focused on emergency procedures, space survival, and basic self-defense. "They're so young," her aide commented. "They need to be prepared." Mary replied firmly. "If we fail, they'll inherit this war." Meanwhile, in orbit around Jupiter, Dr. Lisa White coordinated a massive scientific undertaking. The asteroid belt had become humanity's secret weapon. Each rock was being converted into either a mine or a missile. "Mining efficiency is up 40%, her assistant reported. "We're harvesting more raw materials than ever before." "Good. How's the communication blackout project?" "Dr. Ross believes we can disrupt the devourer hive mind with electromagnetic pulses. If his theory is correct, we can isolate individual ships." Lisa studied the data. "And if he's wrong? Then we've wasted resources on pulse generators instead of more weapons. Risk we have to take. Different approaches to the same problem." In a secret facility in Nevada, retired General Paul Baker met with an unusual team. Old soldiers, young, scientists, civilian volunteers. They were developing the ultimate contingency plan. "If Earth falls," Baker explained, "this group launches the seed ships. Each contains genetic material, recorded knowledge, and resources to restart human civilization." "Elsewhere?" "How many ships?" asked a volunteer. 12. All different directions. The devourers can't catch them all." A scientist spoke up. "Permission to speak, sir? This sounds like preparing for defeat." Baker's face hardened. "I'm preparing for war. In war, you plan for every possibility. We fight to win, but if we can't win, we ensure humanity survives." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the weight of their task. Back at the Primary Defense Coordination Center, Jake Morrison reviewed the global war effort. Screens showed progress from every continent, every orbital facility, every deep space outpost humans had established. "Status report," he called out. "Shipyards operating at maximum capacity," came one response. "Weapons manufacturing ahead of schedule," another reported. "Training programs graduating new crews every week," a third added. "Admiral." Steve Collins joined Jake at the command console. "Think we'll be ready?" "We have to be," Jake replied. "Look at what we've accomplished in just weeks." The screens showed the transformation of human civilization. Peaceful cities converted to war production. Orbital construction unlike anything in human history. Scientific breakthroughs emerging daily. "It's incredible what people can do when survival is at stake," Collins observed. "The aliens could have done this too," Jake said, "but they chose to run first." A timer on the main screen counted down. 11 weeks, 3 days until projected devourer arrival. "We're going to make it count," Jake promised silently. Every second, every resource, every human innovation focused on one goal. Outside the windows, Earth glowed with purpose. Lights from construction sites, exhaust trails from ascending ships, energy signatures from weapons tests. Humanity worked, as one, preparing for the fight of their existence. No one slept much anymore. No one complained. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew what needed to be done. And everyone worked with the shared understanding that retreat was not an option. The sensors screamed their warning. Commander Bill Harper gripped his command chair as alarms blared through the Intrepid, humanity's most advanced scout ship. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, his navigator called out. Multiple signatures. "It's them, sir." Bill's stomach dropped. The devourers had arrived early, 3 weeks ahead of schedule. "All stop. Full stealth mode. Passive sensors only." He reached for the communication console. "Get me Earth Command. Priority Alpha." The bridge filled with tense silence as they drifted in the Kuiper Belt. Through the view screen, Bill watched as space itself seemed to tear open. Massive ships poured through. But ships was the wrong word. These were more like living cities, organic and mechanical at once. "My God," his science officer whispered. "They're beautiful," Bill had to agree. The devourers moved with organic grace, their hulls shifting like living skin. Colors rippled across their surfaces in patterns that almost looked like communication. "Count them," he ordered. 15 primary vessels, his tactical officer reported, each larger than anything we've built. And sir, they're spawning smaller units. Like locusts emerging from a hive, smaller ships detached from the main vessels. Thousands of them, spreading through the outer system. "Sir, we have Earth Command." Admiral Steve Collins's face appeared on the main screen. "Report, Commander Harper." "They're here, sir. Early. 15 capital ships, thousands of fighters. Currently, position near Pluto, and Admiral..." Bill paused. "They're not what we expected." "Explain." "They move like pack hunters, coordinated, intelligent. But there's something else. They're collecting, not just destroying." On the tactical display, Bill watched the smaller ships approach asteroids. Instead of blasting them apart, they enveloped each rock with tentacle-like appendages, drawing them into their bulk. "They're growing," his science officer said, "literally incorporating matter into themselves." Admiral Collins' voice crackled with urgency. "Commander, I need you to get closer. We need detailed scans." "Sir, that's a suicide mission, I know, but we need that data. Humanity is counting on you." Bill looked at his crew. 23 men and women, all volunteers, all knowing what this mission entailed. "Helm, plot a course. Get us close enough for active scans." "Sir," his tactical officer protested, "they'll detect us." "That's the point." The Intrepid crept closer. Each minute felt like hours. Finally, they reached active sensor range. "Scan everything," Bill ordered. "Power signatures, hull composition, communication patterns. I want to know how they think." Data streams flooded their computers. The science officer worked frantically, recording everything. "Sir," he suddenly shouted, "I'm reading something inside the ships. It's not just technology. There are biological signatures, hundreds of different species." Bill felt cold dread settle in his stomach. "The aliens they've consumed?" "Not exactly consumed, sir. Integrated. Parts of them are still alive, still contributing to the Devourer collective." Before Bill could respond, alarm shrieked again. "Contact! Devourer fighter approaching fast." Evasive maneuvers. Too late. The enemy ship was unlike anything they'd trained for. It moved with impossible grace, adapting to every maneuver the Intrepid attempted. "Incoming transmission," communications announced. On screen. The view screen filled with an image that would haunt Bill's nightmares forever. The face that appeared was a patchwork of dozens of species. Zephyrian tentacles blended with Vorthan crystal, all moving in unison. When it spoke, the voice carried echoes of every species humanity had known. "Curious resistance," it said. "You analyze us. Others fled. Why?" Bill steadied himself. "We're not like the others. All organic matter serves the collective. You will join. Your uniqueness will be preserved. Your innovations will enhance us. Never. Inevitable. Your people fought well. Your weapons interest us. Your curiosity enhances us. You will contribute these traits to our evolution." The transmission cut off. Enemy fire erupted around the Intrepid. "Return fire," Bill ordered. "All weapons." Their plasma cannons struck the enemy fighter. To their shock, the damage began healing immediately. The ship literally grew new sections to replace what was destroyed. "Sir, it's adapting to our weapons." Then we changed tactics. "Ramming speed, sir. You heard me. All power to forward shields. We're going to give them something to remember us by." The crew worked without hesitation. The Intrepid accelerated, directly toward the larger Devourer ship. "Sir, we're getting close-range scans," the science officer reported. "The data, it's incredible. Their core ships maintain jump drive signatures from dozens of species. They're using absorbed technology. Keep recording. Send everything back to Earth." As they closed distance, Bill saw the truth. The Devourers weren't just destroyers, they were collectors. Every species that fought them added to their power. Every technology they encountered made them stronger. "Sir, message from Earth Command." "Put it through." Admiral Collins appeared briefly. "We're reading your data, Bill. It's invaluable. Your sacrifice won't be forgotten. Admiral, Bill interrupted. Tell them about the integration. The aliens weren't just killed or absorbed. Parts of them still exist within the Devourers. Fighting them might be exactly what they want. Understood. Godspeed, Commander. The connection died. Alarms screamed as they approached impact. Sir, his navigator said calmly. It's been an honor. The honor was mine, Bill replied. The Intrepid slammed into the Devourer capital ship. The explosion lit up the outer system like a new star. But before the light faded, data packets reached Earth. Packets containing a terrible truth. Back on Earth, Admiral Collins stared at the incoming data. His face paled as understanding dawned. Sir, his aide asked, get me President Johnson. Now. He turned to face the tactical display. We're not just fighting the Devourers. We're fighting every species they've ever encountered, including our own allies. The holographic display showed the terrible revelation. Ship designs from Zephyrians, weapons from Thraxians, shield technology from Vorthans, all integrated into Devourer technology. The aliens didn't just run from the fight, Collins said quietly. They ran to avoid becoming part of it. The timer on the wall showed 8 days until the Devourers reached Earth's outer defenses. 8 days to figure out how to fight an enemy that grew stronger with every victory. Bill Harper's final transmission echoed in the command center. Fighting them might be exactly what they want. The war for humanity's survival had begun, and they were about to discover that victory itself might be defeat. The War Council gathered in Earth's deepest bunker. President Mary Johnson stood at the head of the table, looking at faces filled with grim determination. Admiral Steve Collins, General Paul Baker, Dr. Lisa White, Commander Amy Chen, humanity's best and brightest, preparing for what might be their final decision. We all saw Harper's data, Mary began. The Devourers don't just destroy, they integrate. Every species that fights becomes part of them. Which means, Admiral Collins added, that fighting them might be exactly what they want. General Baker slammed his fist on the table. So what? We surrender? Let them convert us willingly? No, Dr. Lisa White said quietly. We fight differently. All eyes turned to her. She activated a holographic display above the table. Harper's sacrifice gave us the missing piece. The Devourers have a hive mind, but it's not perfectly efficient. It requires constant communication between the absorbed consciousness and the main collective. So? Amy Chen asked. So we don't just fight with weapons, we use logic. We give them something they can't absorb. The room went silent as Lisa explained her plan. 2 days later, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, Earth's flagship. The solar defense grid activated around him. The moon had been converted to a massive railgun platform. Mars held the secondary defense line. The asteroid belt was seeded with antimatter mines. Incoming ships detected, Tactical announced. Multiple signatures. The entire Devourer fleet. Jake nodded. Activate the Scorched Sun protocol. All units to battle stations. Across the solar system, humanity's preparations activated. But this wasn't the battle anyone expected to fight. Sir, Commander Amy Chen reported from her position on Mars. Energy readings are off the scale. They're bigger than Harper reported. Good, Jake replied. More minds to overwhelm. The Devourers approached with terrible beauty. Their ships had grown, incorporating materials from dozens of outer system bodies. Colors shifted across their hulls like living rainbows. Incoming transmission, communications announced. Jake nodded. Put it through. The face that appeared combined traits from every known species. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of civilizations. Human collective, you have studied us well. Your curiosity will be preserved in our unity. Your technological adaptations interest us. Join willingly and retain identity within our consciousness. Counteroffer, Jake responded. Leave our system and we'll let you keep what you've stolen. The entity's expression shifted, surprise combined with amusement. You cannot threaten us. We are countless. We are all who came before. Are you? Jake asked. Or are you just prisoners who forgot they're caged? The transmission flickered. Jake nodded to Lisa White, who was monitoring from Earth. Execute Plan Paradox, he ordered. Across the human fleet, a unique signal broadcast. Not a weapon, but a question. Transmitted directly at the frequencies Harper had discovered connecting the devourer hive mind. The question was simple. If every species you absorb wants to survive, and you claim to preserve their identities, why do they never choose to leave? The effect was immediate. Devourer ships began to slow, their movements less coordinated. It's working, Lisa reported. The hive mind is processing a logical paradox. Each absorbed consciousness is being forced to consider its own continued existence. The entity's face contorted on the screen. Multiple voices now spoke at once. Zephyrian, Thraxian, Vorthan, and dozens more. We preserve. We save. You enslave, Jake interrupted. Every identity you claim to preserve is trapped. Every capability you absorb is stolen. You're not unity. You're a prison. More signals broadcast, each one designed by human philosophers, psychologists, and computer scientists. Questions that forced each absorbed consciousness to recognize its own captivity. Sir, Amy Chen called, from Mars. Enemy ships are breaking formation. They're fighting each other? Jake watched through the viewport as the beautiful terror of the Devourer fleet descended into chaos. Ships that had moved in perfect unison now turned against their own kind. The hive mind was fracturing. All ships prepare for bombardment, Jake ordered. Target the confusion. Hit them while they're questioning themselves. Human weapons fired, but not at the Devourer hulls. Instead, they targeted the connection points, the biological bridges that maintained the hive mind. A scream echoed across all channels, not a sound, but something deeper. The combined anguish of thousands of species suddenly remembering who they had been before absorption. Jake, Lisa's voice came through his earpiece. The main collective is trying to reassert. Control, or we need the final component. Jake took a deep breath. This was the part no one wanted to discuss. The part that made him sick to think about. Activate the Sun Protocol. Deep within the Sun, devices planted by Earth's best engineers activated. The star's output increased dramatically, not enough to go supernova, but enough to flood the system with radiation that disrupted the quantum connections maintaining the Devourer hive. The effect was devastating. One by one, Devourer ships began to separate. The organic and technological components split apart. Thousands of years of absorbed species consciousness broke free from their prison. In the chaos, something unexpected happened. Ships that had fought for the Devourers suddenly turned their weapons against their former masters. The Zephyrian sections attacked the Thraxian sections. Vorthan Crystal attempted to reclaim Vorthan ships. Sir, Tactical reported, the enemy fleet is tearing itself apart. Literally. Jake watched as centuries of absorbed civilizations fought for their freedom. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't clean, but it was working. When the battle ended, the Devourers were no more. What remained were thousands of scattered ships, each representing pieces of civilizations long thought lost. And in the silence that followed, new transmissions began. Human vessels, this is what remains of the Thraxian fleet. We remember now. How do we repay the gift of our own minds? Earth Command, Zephyrian Collective requesting contact. We chose badly before. Let us choose better now. Jake stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Galactic Watch Station. Below, alien ships docked alongside human vessels. The species that had run from the threat now worked with humanity to help the freed races rebuild their civilizations. Korthak approached, his orange skin now a healthy, vibrant hue. Human Jake, we owe apologies. And our lives. You owe us nothing. Jake replied. You taught us what not to do. We taught ourselves what to try. The Zephyrian's tentacles rippled with emotion. The humans. You didn't just fight the devourers. You freed everyone they had taken. Thousands of species returned to themselves. Jake looked out at the busy station. Someone had to try something different. Someone had to ask the right questions. And if your plan had failed, then we'd have gone down asking questions. Seems like a human thing to do. In the months that followed, the galaxy changed. The freed species chose to stay near human space. Together they built new defenses, not to hide behind, but to protect what they had all learned to value: the right to choose their own path. And in the deepest archives of Earth, a single message was recorded for future generations. We faced a threat that consumed civilizations. Others ran. We asked why. And in asking why, we discovered that sometimes the best way to fight something bigger than yourself is to help everyone trapped inside it remember who they really are, including yourself. The message was signed by Captain Bill Harper, posthumously, and every human who had believed that questions could be more powerful than weapons.